Good morning, and thank you for coming out. And I hope this sort of policy introduction to the morning is of interest. So, as Alan has introduced, I am in the Department of Housing in Climate and Construction, and we're working on a number of actions under the Housing for All plan. So I'm going to start with the Housing for All plan because I suppose that's where our involvement with this topic comes from. So, I presume many of you know the kind of high-level stats, 33,000 new homes per annum up to 2030. So overall, over 300,000. Obviously, since this was published in September 2021, there's been a variety of new sources of information coming out to suggest that target will need to be substantially increased, but we're working to this figure at the moment. This is our sort of policy as published, but there's a 4 billion investment in housing per annum, which is the highest level of investment, and there's a commitment for 5 years from 2021, and that'll be reviewed. It may need to be increased beyond that time. So just to, I suppose, show the progress, last year we did surpass our target. The first figure, 29, just short of 30,000 houses were complete, or dwellings were completed. So it's houses, apartments, scheme houses, and one-off houses. So that in total, and across the tenures. So private housing, social and affordable, and cost rental. So this year we had the figure that the most recent figure we have is for the first half of this year. It's just over 14,000, but housing completions do tend to increase, so we'd expect to meet or surpass the target again for this year. But we do have a growing target. The 33 average is increasing year on year, so we need to be building more every year. So 33,450 next year. And just to say, in the presentation, all the images are hyperlinked, so you can find them, but they're easy enough to, everything here is public information, is easy enough to find if you search the titles. So the Housing for All plan, and as I say, this was from 2021, but there were 4 pathways. But the work we do is mainly within the Chapter 5, the actions within the Chapter 5, which is enabling a sustainable housing system, and relates to, I suppose, all the pathways, but primarily looking at new construction. And it was recognised that the housing system needs to be placed on long-term sustainable, economically and environmentally sustainable footing. And MMC was identified, as Alan has mentioned, as a key measure to improve productivity and enable the efficient delivery of housing. So there have been a number of reports going back some years, but the SCSI have been publishing reports on housing and apartment design and construction. They estimate that the construction costs account for about 50% of development. Does vary depending on the scheme types and scheme sizes, but and productivity, which is tracked in a number of reports, is consistently lower than other sectors, and also lower than in previous years. So and lower than the EU average for construction. So, there's opportunities there. So before we were working on Housing for All, there has been a wider policy context to this. It's recognised, the National Development Plan was published originally in 2018, and the construction sector group was established at that time. It was recognised that the state would need to lead and support this work. And so there has been an increased focus of the Department of Public Expenditure, National Development, Delivery and Reform on residential construction, and also some of the agencies such as Enterprise Ireland, who wouldn't have typically looked at the domestic sectors, have been asked to look at the domestic construction sector for the first time. So that's a significant step. So I'm not sure if you'd all be familiar with the construction sector group. You may have had talks on that in the past. So apologies if this is covering territory, but as I say, it was established following publication of the Project Ireland 2040. They have an increased focus on residential construction. It's a government industry group, and they have quarterly meetings chaired by the Department of Public Expenditure. There's a digital adoption and innovation subgroup, it's chaired by PJ Rudden, and has 7 priority actions all related to innovation and digital adoption. Some of the initiatives that I mentioned were actually established under that group prior to Housing for All, but when Housing for All was published, they were sort of taken into the housing delivery, and they've sort of embraced housing as one of their cross-cutting actions alongside sustainability. So the Department of Housing are members of that monthly, there's monthly meetings, but there's a wide range of representation, including NSAI, which Martin participates in the same group. So just to give a sort of mention to some of the publications, going back a few years, but we would have come in around 2021 with Housing for All. So you might recognise some of these, but I suppose an important one is that the Design Manual for Quality Housing was published by the Department of Housing in January 2022. And these are standard designs for local authorities to utilise on their schemes. So that was originally published about a year and a half ago. Housing for All was updated about this time last year with new actions. And some actions have been completed and could be removed. Some needed to be reworked. And it's about to be republished in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. So keep an eye out. There'll be some new areas within that. And just to mention some of the initiatives, Build Digital, the Build to Innovate initiative by Enterprise Ireland, Construct Innovate, which is the Construction Research Centre, a consortium hosted in University of Galway, but includes UCD, TCD, Irish Green Building Council, and UCC. And then the demonstration park down in Mount Lucas. So Mount Lucas is the National Construction Training Centre. It's in a former Bord na Móna site. It is running quite a wide range of training programmes already. And the demonstration park, which was an action from the original Housing for All plan, it's called the National Demonstration Park for MMC. It's to showcase good examples of house types, apartment types, using various systems of MMC. So the MMC Leadership and Integration Group, which is the owner or overseer of the roadmap, was established by the Department of Enterprise, June 2022, to look at or to coordinate all of the actions in Housing for All. So the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment were given the lead to look at, I'd say in the original Housing for All plan, there might have been up to 10 modern methods of construction actions. It's chaired by the Department of Enterprise. We are part of the group and would have quite a lot of involvement with that. So this was the action that was in the 2022 update. So the roadmap was a way of gathering up all the activities and setting out a sort of a way. It was recognised, I suppose, that the sector, it's sort of an ecosystem, that many parts need to move together. So there were a lot of, as I say, actions already underway from the construction sector group, with different being funded in different ways, being managed by different entities, but it was trying to bring all that together and show that there was a coordinated and cross-government support for this work. So that was the original action. You can see it's quite long. It mentions a number of things. Again, you probably know the MMC 7 categories, or the definitions framework that the UK published a report on in 2016, Mark Farmer, Cast Consultancy. Again, there's a link if you'd like to see the original document, but it's something that was developed in the UK to describe a range of alternative and innovative construction methods to traditional construction. There's 7 categories. We've brought out a small sort of non-technical guide for, I suppose, raising awareness among the general public and politicians and the media, I suppose. So that's available to review, but it just gives an overview of some of the categories. And just to say that, all materials can be part of the modern methods of construction. So timber, steel, concrete, and emerging materials, I suppose. So the roadmap itself was published in July. There was some extensive consultation across the departments on this. There's 28 milestones and 6 themes were identified. So procurement approaches, regulations and standards, capital, finance and insurance, skills development, industry competitiveness and capacity, and policy execution and communication. So one of the, I suppose, the lead milestones is the first theme under procurement. Is focused on the Accelerated Social Housing Delivery Programme, which you may have heard of. Separate to this, it was in its own right an action in the updated Housing for All that was published last year, but it was taken as a sort of a lead project for the roadmap, and a number of the work that's been, a number of actions and pieces of work that have been done by the department and by the housing agency you'll hear about in the following talks are captured in the roadmap they will be sort of leading milestones. So the government announced a 100 million fund in December last year if local authorities would join this programme, and they would have land legacy debts written off. So that was the incentive. There were also, some exemptions from the Part 8 planning process were introduced. So the commitment is, and that exemption is only until the end of 2024. So those projects need to be on site by the end of 2024. And the housing agency will hear more about the design guidance that they've published to support the local authorities. And it is available for other public housing deliveries, such as through AHBs or the NDFA or LDA. It's a design build form contract, but at the moment there's over 30 sites, there's over 1,500, and it looks to be increasing, and in 13 local authorities. So I think there's a good level of interest, and I think additional, you'll hear, I'm not sure if Diarmaid's going to actually, I think you are going to talk a little bit to the range of local authorities and the interest from other local authorities now starting to come in. So just to give you a flavour of what the milestones or the topics that are covered are, and as I say, there's links to the main document, so there's a lot more information obviously in the document itself, but initially the Accelerated Social Housing Programme, the use of design build supported, the expanding the use of design build, supporting the local authorities to do that work. So additional resources have been put in place with specialist expertise. Design standardisation, this is something we hear a lot from industry, the need for standardising, rationalising the projects. Local authorities, the LDA would work at a bigger scale, but local authorities would typically be delivering 20, 50, 100 dwellings. They wouldn't be working across thousands of dwellings, I don't think. And you can have the same house or apartment types on multiple sites. And that goes back to the, in different contracts, even if the contracts themselves are not so big, and you want to have a certain amount of mix in, for good, sustainable mixed communities, you want to have a certain range of house and apartment types, but It's trying to rationalise, I suppose, the work that's being done and support the local authorities to work together and with other public housing delivery bodies. And as I say, the design manual that was published originally in 2022 is being reviewed at the moment to ensure that it's really a short list of the designs are compatible with all 7 categories of MMC, which is challenging because they're quite different if you know the different systems that are within those categories, in particular modular, I suppose. As well as that, it's recognised that we might need to do pilot projects just to test, certain procurement around the use of volumetric or modular. And again, it's important that there's a lot of training provided and support. So, the team in the department and in the housing agency have been working with local authorities, and we're looking at how we can provide additional training to procurers as well as professionals and building control authorities. Just to mention that RAI have announced a CPD on the 10th of November, which we support which is a morning of talks on design for manufacturing assembly, which is sort of early design thinking for which should enable the use of modern methods of construction on projects. The Department of Enterprise is encouraging growth of the uptake of growth and sustainability loan scheme. So I've skipped over a couple there, but I think Martin is going to speak about the NSAI milestones, which are in the roadmap and which are under the regulations and standards. But I suppose one important thing that has come out quite recently is the announcement of the Department of Agriculture's Timber and Construction Working Group. You may have heard that, but it will look at specifically at the use of timber, which, as I say, we're not advocating any particular construction material, but they will be focused on the use of timber and homegrown timber as a resource. The timber frame construction method is well established. It's not exactly modern now, but it's still captured within the categories. But that has an Irish standard since 2009, the IS 440, and there are other forms of timber construction which are still at sort of early stage development in Ireland, but are widely used in other countries. So there's an opportunity potentially there. So the fourth theme around skills development, Department of Further Higher Education, SOLAS, Leashafley ETB are all working on this. As I say, the demonstration park is an important piece of that work, but also there are a range of reports being prepared on skills needs. So the expert group for skills needs, I think, which is an entity or agency of the Department of Enterprise, and they are looking to develop an action plan. And the websites, I suppose, of SOLAS are updated with additional information around courses that are available, training. The CP SkillNet, it has a number of micro-credentials now on modern methods of construction, coordination and leadership skills. And then the final theme on policy execution is really just to ensure that the modern methods of construction leadership and integration group monitor and ensure that these wide range of actions or milestones are on track, and to engage with industry and to have annual industry events, and, as I say, to publish sort of information booklets and so on. So the introductory guide that I mentioned will probably try to develop a number of those. And other departments who are working in other sectors are very interested in doing something similar. So our guide is focused on housing, but the Department of Education are very interested in doing something equivalent for educational projects. So just to, I suppose, mention that within the department, there are about 10 divisions in the Department of Housing. There are a range of expertise. We work in the Policy, Governance and Legislation division. Diarmuid is working within the Social Housing Delivery division, but there are technical staff and a range of projects going on across a number of divisions, and as well the agencies under the Department of Housing. So I suppose our work is to ensure that we're all moving in the same direction, and the roadmap is trying to capture all the different activities that are underway. I didn't mention the BIM mandate, but it is an action in there as well under procurement. So the Office of Government Procurement are introducing, probably aware of the BIM mandate from January 2024 for major projects, and then over a 5-year timeframe that will go down to all publicly procured projects. So there is work underway, and Build Digital is obviously supporting that in particular. But that's really it from me. I hope that's given you a good...
That's great.
Yeah.